in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
Rivalry week. We made it. The biggest week in the whole schedule when, you have your most hated team that you despise so much. This is the week that Hater Radio was made for, Rivalry week. So let's jump into it. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Obviously excited for this weekend.
Yeah, so again, huge slate of games. You can see here it's like 20 games that we have listed because there are huge rivalry games, there are conference championship game implications, and college football playoff implications. So, once before, we were talking about this before we got on air, the fact that in years past, it was only like 4 or 5 teams that you really knew about, if like the BCS or CFP, when it was just 4 teams. Now that it's an expanded playoff, you open up the possibility for anyone in the top 25. So games that like used to just not even matter at all, like, years past, like nobody would have cared about a BYU UCF game or Virginia Tech game. Now people are like, whoa, this matters. Like this changes everything. It matters for not only Virginia, but then it matters like for Miami and for Pitt and for like everyone else. Like, so it has huge implications for the entirety of college football, all these games this week. This is like a culmination. Everything has been building to this point and building. So now we have all these games. It's going to be just a tremendous weekend. I'm really excited. We've got games on Thursday for Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Yeah. I didn't say that. I forgot to say that. And, on Friday as well, on Black Friday, we've got games. And then all day Saturday, there's a slew of games. So first off, what we wanted to do today was we wanted to get into the scenarios that the teams have for conference championship games. And, I think the best place to start is probably the hardest, just because it's the most confusing. Ian, let's jump into the ACC. I know you probably did your homework. I looked at it as well. I mean, the scenarios for Miami are frightening. Like,
yeah,
it is. I've never seen anything like it. It's basically they would have to have like everybody lose for them to get in. It's quite remarkable, but it's still a legitimate shot at it. But break down some of the little like tidbits of the ACC scenarios for us.
So to start it off, obviously here, SMU and Virginia can each wrap up a spot if they just win this week. That's all they have to do. So Virginia and SMU, if they win this week, they're in. Pitt can make it with either one of those teams losing. And then if somehow all 3 of them lose, there is a tiebreaker, which that's where strength of schedule and the whole compositing takes place. And I think in that, SMU would be the favorite. But for other teams like Duke would need, I wrote it down here, Duke would need to win, Pitt and SMU to lose, and then have Virginia lose, and they would be in based on record. And then the Georgia Tech needs Pitt win, Virginia to lose, SMU to lose to get in, or Miami win, SMU lose, Duke lose, Virginia lose, North Carolina lose, and Boston College to win to get in. And now Miami, give me a second here. Okay. They need to win. Virginia needs to lose. Duke needs to lose. SMU needs to win. Or pretty much they need to win out. Then they need SMU to lose. Duke lose. Virginia lose. NC State to win. Or SMU lose. Duke lose. Virginia lose. North Carolina and Syracuse win. And they're in. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think there's like 15 other variables that could like happen to get them in, but this was a mess to try to figure out how each team is getting in. But those are the favorites right now of who would get into, jump into the conference championship. But all intents and purposes, it's pretty simple. For SMU and Virginia, win and you're in.
Yeah. And I think Pitt has the second best chances besides those two, because if they win and either one of those guys loses, then they're in. So they're right there on the door as well. I think that Miami stuff is possible. I mean, I've seen stranger things, but the other thing I've noticed in the scenarios for the ACC, they go by this sports source analytics thing ranking, which I don't even know what it is. I've never seen it before. So that's what they're like basing like their last tiebreaker on. And in those cases, like Georgia Tech and Miami and Duke have to like be higher than their teams that are tied with them to be able to go. So it is a crazy scenario for the ACC because, the sad thing about conference realignment is the fact that, the expanded conferences don't lend itself to everyone playing one another. So like Georgia Tech, I don't think they've played any of these teams outside of Duke and Pitt. And then Virginia, I don't know how many teams they've played, but they haven't played many of these teams. It's kind of weird when these like top 5 teams, the easiest thing that you could say is just like, oh, one another played one another. So, it's head to head. We could just figure it out from there. But with a lot of these, they haven't played each other. So it's a little bit more difficult. Let's move on to, this is an easy one. SEC. Tell me about the SEC scenarios.
Yeah, pretty much for these ones. Obviously, the leader right now is Alabama. If Alabama, it's pretty simple. Win and you're in, and that's really all they have to do. For Georgia, they would be in with a Bama or Texas A&M loss since they are on a bye right now. Well, not technically a bye since they're playing Georgia Tech, a non-SEC team.
Yeah.
For Texas A&M, they just need to win as well, beating Texas in Austin, which is easier said than done, or they need Alabama and Ole Miss to lose to jump in. And then Ole Miss potentially as well. They're the only other one that has life here. They need to beat Mississippi State, and then they need Alabama and Texas A&M to lose. And then the SEC championship would be Georgia and Ole Miss if that happens.
Yeah, that's a relatively easy one. Things really kind of settled themselves the last couple of weeks for those top 4 teams. The next one I have is the Big Ten, and they have on their website for the Big Ten, there are 7 scenarios that are possible. And they work with 4 of the teams. So Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan, and Oregon. So it just depends on the variable of like who wins those games. Because it's like if Ohio State and Indiana win out, then they clinch no matter what. And there's nothing you can do about it for the other teams. Then if Indiana beats Purdue and Michigan defeats Ohio State and Oregon beats Washington, then it's Indiana, Oregon, and so forth and so on. So basically all those scenarios involve all those 4 teams. And out of those 3 games, the most likely scenario is that the Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon, Washington games are up in the air. They're basically 50-50 at this point. The Indiana-Purdue game, I'm almost positive that Indiana is going to win that game. I don't have any faith that Purdue could muster up anything. But do you have any thoughts on the Big Ten scenarios there?
No, it's just this one is kind of similar to the SEC where there is a lot of chaos in play, but we know who is in the field right now. Obviously, again, rivalry week, your intention as the other team is to ruin the other team's season, and this is the best way to do it. Oregon, I mean, same thing. Oregon needs help. Michigan obviously needs to take care of business to reach it. But for teams like Indiana and Ohio State, especially for Indiana, I mean, it is kind of a layup game against Purdue, so they got to take care of business. And for Ohio State, you are clearly the better team. We'll get into this when we talk about the game, but it's a matter of taking care of business right now for them.
Okay, last one. Well, actually, did you do the AAC stuff, the American Conference?
Yes,
too?
I did.
Okay, let's do Big 12 first, and then we'll jump into that. Okay, Big 12 scenarios. The most easiest scenario for these teams right now, for the teams that are left, there's 4 of them. It's BYU, Texas Tech, Utah, and Arizona State. Clinching scenarios for BYU: beating UCF, or an Arizona State loss, or they lose, Texas Tech loses, and then Arizona State and Utah win. For Texas Tech, win and they get in, or an Arizona State loss. That's it. That's all that they need. They just need to beat West Virginia, or Arizona State loses. Because if Arizona State wins, Arizona State has the tiebreaker, so they would go ahead of them. So Arizona State, they need a win over Arizona, a Texas Tech loss, and a Utah loss and a BYU win, or an Arizona win, a BYU loss, a Utah loss, a win over Arizona, a Texas Tech loss, a BYU loss, and a Utah win. So it's essentially variations of that for Arizona State. They basically need Texas Tech to lose, and they need to beat Arizona first and foremost. And then the other ones, we'll see what will happen. It's a very combination of, they cannot have both Utah and BYU win. Essentially, they have to have one of them lose. That's they can't both win because they don't have the tiebreaker on either of those, I don't think. And then Utah clinches. This is a real easy one. They need a win over Kansas. They need a Texas Tech loss. They need an Arizona State win and a BYU win. So it's not that complicated. It's really just a win and Texas Tech loss and have a shot. So we'll see. But all these scenarios are so crazy. So let's jump into the American. What do you got for me, Ian?
So right now it's kind of a 3-team race with North Texas, Tulane, and Navy. And you'll notice why I picked Navy and Memphis as the big one for the G5, because there's a lot riding on that game. Navy, they would need to win and North Texas to lose, or Tulane to lose to get in. For Tulane and North Texas, they need to win their games and get in. Yeah, they're winning, they're in. And if they do lose, at least with Tulane, they need Navy to beat Memphis and then North Texas to lose to Temple to get in. But that's the scenario right now for the AAC. But obviously there's a lot hinging, because if Navy does beat Memphis, the pressure's on Tulane and North Texas for their games. Obviously their games are not difficult. They play Charlotte and Temple, but for Memphis and Navy game Friday, that one, or Thursday, I believe. What day do they play?
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday. So they play on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So regardless, Navy can still stay alive if they win this game, and then put the pressure on making North Texas and Tulane win their games.
Yeah, the game's tomorrow at 7:30. Okay, the one thing, the caveat is that North Texas just lost their coach. So we'll see how committed they are to winning out. So they might just, pack it in, and it might be it. They might just, they might lose that game. But we'll talk about it in a second. Okay, so we got all those scenarios out there. I know there's a ton of information. Essentially, this weekend is pivotal for all these conferences. There's no this team is in definitely. None of them are. So everyone has to win essentially to move on. And there are a ton of games where there's no shoe in. There's barely any easy layup games here. These are all difficult games. So let's jump into it. So this is week 14, rivalry week. The first game, like we said, is Navy Memphis on Thanksgiving Day. Navy's coming off a big win against South Florida in Annapolis 2 weeks ago. Then before that, they lost to Notre Dame 49-10. And then before that, lost to North Texas 31-17. So Navy is 1-2 in its last 3 games and kind of reeling a little bit. But the same could be said about Memphis, where they lost to ECU 31-27. They lost to Tulane 38-32. They beat Rice. They beat South Florida, but then they lost to UAB. So in their last 5 games, they're 2-3. So not a good look for this Memphis team. So I don't know. I mean, in this game, like Horvath didn't play in that Notre Dame game, so you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But he played in the North Texas game, and that game was somewhat close at points, but like North Texas was leading almost the entire way. So I feel like this is 2 teams at the back half of the year really kind of struggling. I don't really like either one, but you need a winner here because there's a lot on the line. Like you said, the American Conference Championship game appearance is on the line. It's in Memphis, and man, I don't know. Well, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think?
So I think obviously this game is going to come down to how well the run game is for Navy. And the one thing to note is that Memphis has the per yards per carry is the number 1 defense against the run in the American right now. So Navy's going to have to find ways to, diversify the option attack, maybe running to the outside or something like that. But they need to be averaging 5-6 yards per carry. But I feel like Memphis is kind of up to the challenge. Now, again, credit. We always say, this team's built against the run. Navy doesn't have a typical run game. It's not. It's literally just like, we're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink to you on the ground. And then Memphis still has to be prepared against the pass, which similar to USF, they're not well equipped secondary wise.
Right.
But in this one, I think the Tigers get it done. I think the defense gets enough stops. It's at home. And the other thing to note, too, doing the homework on this, since both teams have been playing in the American, Navy hasn't won in Memphis in a decade. Since then, Memphis has won every game. I think the Tigers keep it up, and they eliminate the midshipmen. I'm going to go Memphis winning with a 27-20 win.
Yeah, I mean, I just, looking at the last couple of weeks for Memphis, just how, I don't know, their defense has just been struggling. And I feel like this Navy team can score points, especially with Horvath. And I really like the receiver, what is his name? Heineken?
Yeah.
Heineken, but let me see what his name is. Heidenreich. Yeah, Heidenreich, sorry. And, I feel like they can be able to do some things. They can be able to score points. And I think, Memphis will be able to put up a decent total. Like, I'm going to say like at least 30 points. But I think Navy can score more than that. I'm going to say like a 37 to like 31 game. Okay, moving on. We've got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl. Ole Miss last couple weeks, they struggled with Florida till the very end and then kind of outpaced them 34-24, even though that game was closer than that final score shows. They destroyed Citadel, which doesn't really matter. It kind of took care of business against South Carolina. They had a nice win against Oklahoma, probably their best win all year. They lost to Georgia 35-43. The offense isn't the problem. I think their defense is not as stout as they would like. And I think, if Mississippi State was not as struggling as much as they are, because Mississippi State, last couple weeks have been kind of, falling apart here. They did have that win against Arkansas, 38-35, but they got destroyed by Georgia, 41-21. Then Missouri did the same thing without Perbula, mind you, as well. And I think Mississippi State is only 3 or 4 wins on the season. They did beat Arizona State, which, Arizona State is a good team. So, but besides that, they really struggled. They lost to Tennessee. They lost to Florida, a 3-win team. They got smoked by Texas A&M. I don't know. This Mississippi State team, I know it's a rivalry game, but, they're not good enough. Shapen, as far as a quarterback, is good enough to put up points. But I don't know. I think this Ole Miss team scores at least 40 points. I think they know they're really on the verge of the CFP. All they have to do is win and they're in. If there's one team tomorrow for the playoff, because they're not getting to the SEC championship game, well, maybe they're more than likely not. But if they win, then they're in the playoff. That's all they have to do is tomorrow is win, or Friday. They have to win, and that's it. So, out of any other team, no one else has that scenario of tomorrow being it, because almost every other team has a legitimate shot of playing the conference championship game as well, and then who knows from there. So I feel like this Ole Miss team is on a mission. I know the distractions from Lane Kiffin going to either LSU or Florida or wherever, or staying at Ole Miss. I don't think they're worried about that. I think they're able to concentrate. I think they're able to, Chambliss is able to put the offense on his back. Lacey's going to have a good game. I feel like the defense will do just enough. They'll still probably score, I'm going to guess, 24, 25 points. Mississippi State will. So I'm going to say Ole Miss scores probably 42. So I'm going to go with a 42-25 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and the other notable thing to pick here is that Mississippi State has the second to worst defense in the SEC right now. Arkansas is dead last, and right in front of them is Mississippi State. And now you have to deal with Ole Miss, who is the best offense right now in the SEC. So I feel like in this one, Ole Miss, they're going to take care of business. Even with the distractions going on, I mean, this could very well be Lane Kiffin's last game in Oxford. But I don't feel like it's going to be enough to where they can just collapse here. Again, though, especially with this rivalry, with how much they hate each other, I mean, anything could happen. And I think the game will be, close going into halftime, honestly. But after that, I think Ole Miss should pull it away. I'm going to go with a 31-17 win for the Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this Ole Miss team is just better. This Mississippi State team, it's a shame because they were in some of these games. That Texas game was an overtime game that they should have won. They probably should have beat Tennessee because there was some defensive scores for Tennessee there. So, Mississippi State has done enough to win and to be a 5-6 win team, but they just have not gone over the hump, and I don't think they're going to be able to get over it here in this game. Okay, next game we've got is Utah, Kansas. I mean, this Utah team, outside of the loss to Texas Tech, which they lost 34-10 at the very beginning of the season, and then that BYU loss, which they barely lost 24-21, this Utah team has been pretty dominant. They've put up 45 points or more the last 4 weeks. Before that, 42 points against Arizona State, 48 against West Virginia. Their offense, it's predicated on Dampier's ability to run and then using that play action to get the safeties off, and it works really well because they're a very effective running team. The offensive line, I think 2 of them on the offensive line are graded pretty high to go into the like first or second round of the NFL draft coming up. So the line is great. The defense is very good. Outside of that Kansas State game, they've really kind of shut teams down. Last week, Kansas State just ran all over them. So I don't know if that's going to be the case here. I haven't really paid too much attention to Kansas since they kind of fell out of favor the last couple of weeks. They got a blowout loss to Kansas State, blowout loss to Texas Tech, barely beat UCF, they beat Oklahoma State well. They lost Arizona, and then they lost to Iowa State. So they just been battered and bruised. I think they were like, 5 or 6 loss team at least. And, it's funny because like this Kansas team had some ingredients to be a good team and get better, but they just kind of never have. And you heard a lot about their coach, Leopold, for a while, where it was like, oh, he's going to go on to a bigger job. And they kind of just have faltered. Jalen Daniels, who was like huge at first, now is like, I don't know, the luster has fallen off on him. I expect Utah to be in this game pretty big. I'm expecting Utah to score at least 40 points, and I'm probably going to say 45. And I don't think Kansas can score more than 20. So I'm going to say 45-17. What do you got, Ian?
The best hope for Kansas here is that this game is going to be a shootout because that's really the only chance they have. But I don't see Utah's defense giving that up. I get, they got ran over against Kansas State, and honestly, we're lucky to win that game. But I feel like that's not going to happen twice. So unless it's some Kansas hex that they have on the Utes, but I doubt it.
Yeah,
I feel like the Utes will get it done, and maybe Kansas and Utah go back and forth, but I think Utah settles it in. I'm going to go Utah winning with a 35-20 win.
Okay, next game we've got is Georgia Tech, Georgia. Good old-fashioned hater. Clean old-fashioned hater, whatever you call it.
Clean old-fashioned hate.
Yeah, clean old-fashioned hate. What a great rivalry name. I mean, it's perfect for our brand. Radio really is. But I don't even think they're allowed to call it that anymore, which is ridiculous.
Oh, they called it. I don't think it's not that they aren't allowed. It's because it's in Atlanta. They put some sponsor name. It's like
right.
They called it like the it's like how world's largest outdoor cocktail party is now like the Florida Georgia Classic. They called it like some end of season class. It's clean old fashioned hate. It's like same thing with Oregon and Oregon State. It's the Civil War. I don't know. Old man yelling at Sky right now.
But Georgia Tech last couple weeks kind of falling apart here. Outside of beating Duke 27-18 and Syracuse 41-16. Last couple of weeks, they lost to NC State 48-36. They needed a miracle to beat Boston College, a 1-10 team, 36-34. And then last week in the first couple of minutes, they were down 28-0 to Pitt right out the gate and came back. They made it a one-score game late in the game, but Pitt had a huge run by their running back to really ice it. So I don't know what we're going to get out of this Tech team. I honestly don't. I think Georgia's running high right now. They had their blowout win against Mississippi State. They had an easy one against Charlotte the week before. And then the week before that, the Texas game was a little closer into the fourth quarter, but Georgia kind of ran away with it at the end. And then they needed a close one against Florida. I feel like Georgia's riding high right now, and Georgia Tech is like on the opposite end of that spectrum. I love Haynes King. I've been a huge proponent of his ever since probably last year, and he's just put up huge numbers. They have like the number one offense in the country, and they put up a ton of points. They can run the ball very well. Haynes King puts up yardage through the air. I feel like they can get to Georgia's defense. I'm not the biggest fan of Georgia's defense at all. Like, in the games against Florida, Florida was able to move the ball, and Ole Miss had the first 8 drives where they were scoring, something like that. And then the Alabama game as well. Alabama had Georgia on the ropes. So I feel like Georgia Tech is good enough to be able to put Georgia's defense on skates. And I think they can get some confusion with their RPO and their motion game and get those openings and find the little spots, especially last year, if you think about it, because last year Georgia barely won that game. They probably shouldn't have won that game. Georgia Tech was the better team in that game. And I feel like Georgia Tech is better now than they were last year. And I feel like Georgia's probably about the same, roughly the same as they were last year. Maybe slightly better because Carson Beck isn't throwing a million interceptions. But no, I like Georgia Tech, but because of the last couple of weeks have been so hit or miss, I don't know what to make of them because they cannot come out super cold again. I don't think that's going to happen in a rivalry game when there's a lot on the line. But just because the game's in Atlanta does not mean that there's going to be a ton of Georgia Tech fans. It's largely going to be Georgia fans. It's going to be 70-30. I'm almost I have no doubt in my mind. I don't know why Georgia Tech agreed to this. I don't know what they were thinking, but whatever. So I don't know. If Georgia Tech comes out right away and can score, if they can go keep pace with Georgia at first, then I think they got a shot. But if they go down 14, 17, nothing, I think they're going to lose pretty easily. So just depends on the start. And I feel like Georgia Tech's going to come out and they're going to learn their lesson from last week. They're going to come out better to start the game. And I'm going to say Georgia Tech wins just barely. I'm going to say a 31-28 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and similarly, I don't feel like with Georgia Tech, they're spinning right now. But Georgia, no matter what you've been throwing at them, unless you are Alabama, you can't really seem to kill them. So that's where I feel like this game is going to happen. For Georgia Tech, they're going to have to play keep away, just straight up. They're going to have to win the time of possession battle, and they're going to have to keep this game close. And even if it is close, there's no guarantee. Obviously, the running game is going to be the focal point. And I feel like also, too, Georgia's defense knows how to, with Haynes King, they know he's going to be the focal point. Now, credit, they didn't do a good job last year, but I feel like they learned their lesson and will find a way to limit the damage here. Other thing to note, too, this is in the Georgia Dome, and the last time Georgia did lose in Atlanta was the 2003 SEC champion or 2023 SEC championship. So ever since, unless it's Alabama, that was the other thing I looked up. The last time they lost in Atlanta to a team that wasn't Alabama, in the Georgia Dome, was the 2019 SEC championship against LSU. Since then, they've won every game if it's not Alabama. Also, on top of the fact, this is where I just go way too deep into it. The Yellow Jackets haven't won in Atlanta against Georgia since 1999 in Bobby Dodd Stadium. Since then, all their wins have been ironically on the road, but they haven't won at home against Georgia since 1999. So you want to talk about streaks? We talked about Tennessee not winning in the swamp last year. This one is up there. Obviously, it's not in Georgia Tech's home arena, but this one would be similar. But I don't feel like they'll be able to get it done. I think Georgia finds a way to win, and they'll escape with a 31-27 win.
Do you think it's going to be because Georgia's offense dominates, or because Georgia Tech's or Georgia's defense dominates in this game?
I have a better feeling with Georgia's defense because I feel like they're just going to, again, even if you win the time of possession battle, playing against that defense is murder. So obviously they hit hard. They're going to wear you out. And then when it comes down to crunch time, it's going to be much more difficult once you're gassed and all that. So I feel like Georgia's defense finds a way to win, especially if Georgia can force turnovers. I don't think the Yellow Jackets could come back from that.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to next game we've got is Temple, North Texas. Now it's interesting because North Texas just lost their coach. He is on to Oklahoma State, and he's staying to coach. Allegedly, I don't know. I haven't necessarily heard yes or no. As of yesterday, he was hired, so I don't know what's going on for this game because I mean, literally the game's on Friday, so they don't have much time to figure this out. Even if he left, I figured he would stay. The game is in Destin, and North Texas is favored by a lot. Temple is not very good. They lost to Tulane last week, 37-13. Lost to Army, 13-14. Lost to ECU, 45-14. They did beat Tulsa before that and Charlotte. Barely lost to Navy. Beat UTSA. Lost to Georgia Tech. Lost to Oklahoma. I mean, this Temple team is not very good, and I expect North Texas to move the ball very well. But again, a lot of what I've said all year is North Texas is one of the best teams as far as turnover margin. They do a really good job of forcing turnovers and not committing them as well. And so, North Texas, the only game they lost against USF, they struggled in that aspect. At first, they were winning the turnover margin, and then it really went the other way, and that was the difference in that game. I think what I've seen all year is North Texas has taken those short fields and turned them into easy points really quickly, and it kind of demoralizes the other team so that they really are playing from behind relatively quickly. And so if that happens here, if Temple, is down 21-0 like into the first quarter, then I expect North Texas to roll really easily. And, there's a really good chance of that. I know that the coach situation obviously throws a wrench into the gears, so we don't know for sure until we see it on game day. But as of right now, I expect Mestamaker and that offense with their running back, who's very stout, and a slew of wide receivers that are very capable. The offense is very good. The defense, like I said, is just a very opportunistic defense that makes plays to create turnovers. So I'm going to say North Texas wins like 45. No, I'll go 52 to like 17. What do you got?
Yeah, I don't see Temple's offense keeping up with North Texas straight up. Their defense has shown signs of life in a couple games. Obviously, well, with the exception of like Tulane, but they were hanging in there with Tulsa. They shut down Charlotte. They kept it close against Army. But when it's like an elite offense, like I wouldn't say maybe like Tulane's elite, but they got blown out by Tulane. They got blown out by East Carolina. I don't see them keeping up with North Texas, so I'm going to go Mean Green winning. I'll go with a 45-20 win.
Okay, next game we've got Texas A&M, Texas. What is the rivalry name for this one?
FU. I think
I don't remember there being a rivalry name for this one. I don't remember ever hearing one.
I think it was called like the Southwest shootout or something. Not like Red River, but Lone Star shootout. That's what it was.
Lone Star shootout. I'm good with that. I want to hear your thoughts on this one first.
First of all, thank God that this game is back. I mean, again, I hate that, with conference realignment, you don't get a lot of these rivalries anymore, but at least we got this one back. This game, obviously, oh man, you want to talk about battered bowl syndrome for USF fans? That's nothing compared to Texas A&M. And now your one-way ticket to finally making the SEC championship, your most hated in-state rival is in the way in Texas, and it's in Austin. So the pressure is on once again for A&M to come out and have a good game. Now, obviously, Texas, they had a really, big game against Arkansas, although Arkansas was kind of coming back there. But, after the drubbing they had against Georgia, and then they let, Vandy get back into it. Like I've been saying all year, Texas has been playing with fire. I mean, they had to go to overtime against Kentucky, Mississippi State. They lost to a really bad Florida team at the time. And Texas A&M, while they've been doing, good, they haven't been immune either. Also, Arkansas played them close. South Carolina, that insane comeback. So I feel like in this game, with Texas A&M's defense, the main goal, kind of similar to what we've seen with a lot of like winning formulas, is that you've got to get Arch Manning moving in the pocket. He's still not comfortable in moving around in the pocket. And while he is athletic, if you put the spy package on there in the corner blitzes, it's a lot more difficult for Texas A&M to kind of jump on that. Now, Texas A&M does have the last win here in the rivalry in Austin when it was like an annual one in 2010. But I feel like in this one, man, screw it. Give me the chaos. I think Texas pulls off the upset and they find a way to win it. I think the defense gets enough stops and they force Marcel Reed to make some bad decisions. Yeah, I got a bad feeling with A&M in this game because it's in Austin, it's at night. Yeah, I think Texas gets it done.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this A&M team, like you said, because they struggled against South Carolina and probably shouldn't have won that game, and somehow barely did. But then they kind of dominated Missouri and dominated LSU, but then they struggled against Arkansas. And I don't know. I mean, I know they're a good team. They beat Notre Dame, and that's really about it, honestly. That's really the only good team they've beaten all year. Everyone else has been kind of bad. They didn't have to play Alabama. They didn't have to play Georgia. They didn't have to play Ole Miss. So they basically navigated, again, with the expansion of the conferences, it kind of lends itself to this thing happening. And it's frustrating because it's like, I think I saw somewhere where the 8 teams that Texas A&M has played, their record is like so suboptimal and just like so below like what, like it was like something like 11-38 or something like that was their record in conference. And I'm just like, it's just ridiculous that like, A&M can avoid all these good teams, and they just have been able to like basically, they didn't even get to play. I don't know. Oh, they didn't play Oklahoma as well. Like they played none of the top tier teams in the SEC, and so it's kind of unfair to everyone else because it's like, you see Oklahoma's schedule and you see, Alabama's schedule, and both of them are playing like everybody, and they still navigated it, and they had 2 losses, but they're like Texas A&M is undefeated, and I don't know. I think you might be right. I honestly feel like this might be a danger spot for A&M. This might be their – because, dude, if they lose this game and I think they get into the playoff. Like, I think there's, like, no doubt in my mind, no matter what happens the next 2 weeks for them, if they win or lose this game, they go to the SEC championship game, win or lose that, no matter the scenarios the next 2 weeks for them, they're in the playoff. I, like, have no doubt in my mind. It'd have to be some kind of miracle for them to not – like if they lost this game and then lost next week, maybe, but even then, those are still good losses, and the next week loss is probably the best loss you're going to have all year. So I don't know what you would have to say to that, but I still feel like A&M at this point is almost assured of a playoff spot. But like you said, this could be that moment where they just falter, battered bull syndrome, where whatever, they fail to live up to the hype, fail to meet the moment. And it's in Austin. Like, it does favor Texas here a lot. It really does. Like, it seems like Texas should win this game. It's a huge rivalry game. Ah, man. And Marcel Reed is a good quarterback, but I like Arch Manning more. And if Texas's defense, that really is the key. If Texas's defense just like can get some stops, which I don't think they'll get a ton of stops because I think A&M is going to be able to score some points, but I think Texas can still score on them. And I think Texas is going to probably be in it's going to be like a 34-30 game. And I'm going to go with Texas. I'm going to go with you. You convinced me, and I feel like you're right. I'm going to say Texas wins 34-30. Okay, moving on. We've got Arizona State, the Party Bowl. As I don't know if they're still the two largest party schools, but I wouldn't doubt it. Not much else to do out there. It's pretty hot. Might as well party. Arizona coming off a win against Baylor, a win against Cincinnati, which is a solid victory in Cincinnati. They beat Kansas. They beat Colorado. So they're on a heater right now. Before that, they had a couple of losses to BYU and Houston, and then Iowa State. So this Arizona team, like we said about the scenarios, they have a shot here to really, make a huge win here. I like Arizona in this game a lot. I really do, because Fafita puts up a ton of points, and the offense is solid. It's just this Arizona State. Dillingham is probably one of the best younger coaches out there. Sam Levitt is a stud. This Arizona State team, their last couple weeks, they smoked Colorado, barely beat West Virginia, barely beat Iowa State, lost to Houston, beat Texas Tech, lost to Utah. So they've had an up and down last couple of weeks, outside of those wins against some easy teams. I think their defense has been doing well enough. They kept Texas Tech in check, but Texas Tech didn't have their starting quarterback. Baron Morton was not in that game. But other teams they've kept in check as well. Held Baylor to 24 points, TCU to 24, Iowa State to 19. I don't know. This is a tough one. All these are tough. Like, honestly, getting now to the end of the year, because a lot of these teams are capable of doing, both teams and the matchups are really very good. I'm going to say I like Arizona. I really do. I think this is like one of those ones where it's like, I know Arizona State has a lot on the line, potential playoff, Big 12 championship berth. But I think Arizona is like tough enough here that they can score a decent amount of points. I'm going to say Arizona wins like, let's say 29 to like 25. What do you got?
Yeah, and I second that, mostly on the fact of this game being how interesting the dynamics are going to be defensively, because Arizona has been relying on the passing game with Fafita and has done an amazing job. He's over 2,500 yards on the season. He's got over 20 TDs. And with Arizona State, while, Levitt is obviously a solid quarterback, it's been the run game that's kind of been the engine that keeps it going. What's funny is that Arizona State's defense in passing is 66 in the country, I believe, last time I checked. And Arizona's defense against the run is in the 60-70 range. So both of the defenses they have, their biggest weakness is the other team's offensive strength. So I feel like this one might be a shootout, and I feel like this one might come down to who has the ball last. And I like, in this situation, I have a better feeling with Arizona coming in and getting the win here, especially if it comes down to like a last second type situation, because I feel like Fafita and that offense is more built for maybe like a 1 minute drill than Arizona State. So I'm going to take the Wildcats winning this one. I'm going to go with a 38-35 win for Arizona.
I'm just going to do a correction out there. I noticed, because Jeff Sims has been in quarterback So Levitt has been
Oh, yeah.
out. I think I realized that. I just forgot. I didn't remember if he was coming back or not. It says that he had the Liz Frank foot injury, which is it says it was a season ending, and so I guess he's not going to play. I didn't realize that. I guess we kind of lost track of them because most of their games weren't really that like top tier games, so we kind of forgot about them. And correction, there's a lot of teams to cover. I'm sorry, we can't have top knowledge on every single team, and we try our best, but it's just some things will slip through the cracks. So Sam Levitt is not playing. Jeff Sims, former Georgia Tech quarterback, still in there, putting up decent numbers. I don't think that changes my prediction for me. And you said your prediction was again
Arizona, and I had them winning. I had them winning 38-35.
Okay, yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like Arizona's going to win this game. And now that I know that Sims is the quarterback, I'm probably even more assured of that. Okay, let's move on to Texas Tech, West Virginia. Now, this West Virginia team is real pesky. They've been putting up decent results last couple of weeks. They were real close against Arizona State 2 weeks ago. They beat Colorado. They beat Houston, which is a big win. They barely lost to TCU. They got smoked by UCF, got beat by BYU, got beat by Utah, got beat by Kansas, beat Pittsburgh, who's now highly ranked, but Pittsburgh was different quarterback at that point, so that's earlier in the year. This West Virginia team, their record makes them look a lot worse than they are. I think they're still like finding their way with Rich Rod. I like them in this game, but I've also been a huge fan of Texas Tech all year, and I feel like that Texas Tech team is stout. I feel like the defense puts up great performances week in, week out. Last 4 weeks, listen to these totals. 9 points to UCF, 7 points to BYU, the 11th best team in the country, 20 points to Kansas State, and 0 to Oklahoma State. So, like, shutting out a conference opponent is a huge, huge defensive performance. And the last 4 weeks, they've allowed 36 points between the 4 games. That is less than 10 points a game that they're allowing in the last 4 weeks. This defense is very unheralded. I don't know why. I think it's because the Big 12 has that that narrative of offense. Like when it was like 15, 20 years ago when like the Sooners were really good on offense, and like they were putting up a ton of points, and Texas Tech was like scoring 50, 60 points a game. And so like the narrative has always been that the defense stinks in the Big 12. Well, clearly it does not, because this team is one of the best defenses in the country. And I think they're going to continue that in this game. I think they hold to West Virginia to like 14 points or less. I think Texas Tech, conversely, on offense is extremely efficient. They put up a ton of explosive plays. The run game is super impressive. Dickey, great running back. I know the other guy, their other running back, I don't know if he played last week. Let me see. I think he was hurt. No, Jacoby Williams, he played. Okay, so Dickey and Williams are a great 1-2 combination. Baron Morton, when healthy, is very, very impressive. They lost their backup quarterback, Hammond, to an injury, so Morton is their guy. The other guy, Griffiths, is not as good as those two, so they need to rely on Morton to be healthy. So you'll probably won't see as many quarterback runs because of that. Then you got Caleb Douglas, wide receiver, Reggie Virgil. I mean, the team is stacked. Like this Texas Tech team, it's not like a nationally followed team because they have not had big-time games outside of the BYU game and the Utah game. Those two were the only two games that really stood out, and maybe the Arizona State game. But those are the only two or three games that Texas Tech has really played. Outside of that, no one's really talked about them. Their non-conference was really kind of nothing. So I like Texas Tech a ton in this game. I'm going to say they score like at least 30. I'm going to say they win 35 to 10. What do you got?
Yeah, and I just don't see West Virginia keeping up with Texas Tech, especially with the defense. Again, I've harped on it all year. Texas Tech has one of the best defenses in the country. Now West Virginia has to face that buzzsaw now. And while they've been playing close games, I mean, I remember, I think back to like when they got blown out to UCF, and I'm thinking this Texas Tech team is way better than that. So I'm going to go with the Red Raiders winning this one and running away with it. I'm going to go with a 38-14 win.
Gosh. Okay. Next game we have, this is an interesting one. This is, I've been circling this game all year as saying this is a game that Miami should lose. Miami going up against Pitt in Pittsburgh. It's an early game, which I thought at first it was going to be a later game because it would make sense because it's like the marquee game for the ACC on that day. But for whatever reason, they decided to put it at 12 noon. Whatever, that's their decision. It probably saves Miami here because if it was a later game and it's a lot colder, those Miami players are probably not wanting at all to play in that game. So, Heinzel has played extremely well. Last week, they were up big against Georgia Tech early, like we talked about in the Georgia Tech preview, and kind of slowed down after that point. They got up to the big lead and kind of took their foot off the gas. Credit to Ja'Kerion Turner. Turner had a huge game, especially that monster touchdown late. Miami coming off of a pretty impressive win against Vatek, looked a little more impressive than the number was because they scored a touchdown with 20 seconds left on fourth down at their 25 to make it look a bigger score than it actually was because it was really a 10-point game at that point. They dominated NC State. They dominated Syracuse. They lost to SMU. They dominated Stanford. And then the week before that, they lost to Louisville. So this Miami team, everything is riding on this because we talked about the scenarios. There are some scenarios that they can get into the ACC championship game, but it's not likely. Like the percentage is very low. There's a very low chance of them actually doing that. But the chance of them getting to the playoff is still relatively high because if they win this game, then they have a really good shot. They would match Notre Dame's total. They would also maybe get in. I don't know how the scenario is where it's the ACC champion. Do they pick Miami over the ACC champion? I don't know how that works. I don't know. As of right now, the playoff bracket they keep showing Miami is in and not the ACC champion. So, which is weird because Miami does not have a shot at it, a great shot at it. But I don't know. It's a cold weather game. Heinzel looks good. He's put up huge numbers all week or all year. And the only real game that he struggled was that Notre Dame game, which credit to Notre Dame is obviously a good team, and Miami has beaten them. So maybe transitive property that helps them there. I don't necessarily know. It's a different kind of game because it was similar to the Georgia Tech game where, Notre Dame got out ahead relatively quickly, helping with some defensive scores that kind of changed the complexity of that game. Miami, on this hand, is a good team. Tony is a very impressive freshman, putting up huge numbers. Beck has looked better the last couple of weeks. I have relatively low interceptions. I don't think there was any last week. So if he continues that trend, they can move in the right direction and win this game. But again, I go to the fact that it's going to be really cold. I'm going to look at the temperature right now as we're talking about it because you've got their quarterback Heinzel, and it says it's 45 degrees right now, and then for Saturday 34 with a low of 23. So it's going to be super cold, and it says it's going to snow Thursday and Friday. I'm telling you, man, like, you know, it really does something when these, like, you know, warm weather teams have to go play in the cold. It is hard. It is not like where it's like, oh, you can just turn it on and, like, you know, play. So it could be a really deciding factor here. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts before I give a prediction.
Yeah, obviously both of these teams, clearly Pitt needs to win this game to remain alive in the ACC championship, even if they need help with Virginia or SMU losing. And Miami needs all the help they could get right now to get in. But in this game, what it's really going to come down to is how well Miami can protect the ball. We saw Pitt just completely own Georgia Tech and own that game based off turnovers.
Yeah.
Miami, who we have seen at times this year, especially with Beck, not be so, you know, good with handling the ball and, you know, interceptions, fumbles, all that kind of stuff. They need to eliminate that in any way because Pitt will take advantage of it and will run all over them with it. So in this game, I got a feeling Pitt's defense is going to do everything they can, especially in like man coverage or maybe cover 3 packages, to get back into making bad decisions. But I feel like Miami is going to know that, especially if it's a cold weather game, they're not going to really try to really like play dangerous. So there might be needing to, you know, rely on the run game here and kind of go with the safe bets, kind of throw it to, you know, guys like Tony and those packages there to with guys like Fletcher at running back. Short field or short passing plays, I feel like, will be the name of the game for Miami. I feel Pitt, they can have the explosive play more compared to Miami, but if they don't get the turnovers, I feel like if Miami takes care of the ball, I feel like Miami will survive. It'll be close, but I think they'll survive, and I think the Hurricanes get it done and they win barely. As long as they are not committing more than literally 1 turnover, they'll win. So I'm going to go Canes winning. I'll go with a close one. I'm going to go with the 24-20 win for Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that's been it all year for Miami. It's been, you know, if Beck doesn't implode, which not even like the rest of the team's not even like committing that many turnovers because there's not really that many fumbles by the rest of the team. It's all on Beck. Like if Beck doesn't if he doesn't throw interceptions, they've been, you know, basically in control of all these games all year. So if he implodes like he did against Louisville, 4 interceptions, he kind of imploded against SMU a little bit there. And, you know, I feel like Pitt's offense is good enough to score some points. But again, the you know, what pressure they saw Pitt against Notre Dame, it's going to be way ramped up against Miami. So I feel like Miami's defensive line is better than Notre Dame's, and Notre Dame was like in Heinzel's grill almost the entire time. So I feel like that's probably going to be the same thing here. So if Miami can eliminate the turnovers, get after Heinzel, you know, force him to just not even make mistakes, but just not to be comfortable, because you saw that, like I said, in the Notre Dame game where it was just like he never was comfortable and never really could get set. And so he was constantly running for his life. If that's similar for Miami and like they can eliminate the run game for Pitt, I expect Miami to win this game. Again, the cold weather, Heinzel being a better quarterback, it should have some effect here, but we'll see. I expect a close game though. I'm gonna say Miami wins 28-27, and maybe like a late field goal wins it. Okay, next games we've got. Let's see, I got 2 browsers. Give me a second. The game. I really hate that this game is called The Game. Like, I don't know. Like, there are some years when this game doesn't matter, and you know, I saw the numbers where it was like the amount of national champions between the rivalry game and like, you know, they were comparing it to the Iron Bowl, and the Iron Bowl has like 8 national championships compared to like Ohio State's and Michigan's like 3. So it's like kind of, you know, stands out there. I know Alabama was the better of the two, but still there were plenty of years where Auburn was, you know, undefeated in 04 and then went for the national championship in 2013-14. So like, you know, it's just, it's kind of, you know, parsing hairs. Like, it's not that big a deal. I just don't like, because I'm not a fan of most Midwest people just because they all move to Florida and they're annoying and they try to impart their like greatness of the Midwest, and, you know, the Midwest is kind of lame. No offense to the Midwest, but like, you know, like it doesn't beat living in Florida or like California, you know, like that's why people move to those places and they're like the most populated states in the country. You know, there's a reason for that. But they, you know, try to impart their rivalries and whatever. And like, and most of those people keep rooting for those teams, which that is the annoying part of all those people. There's someone I know that is an Ohio State fan, and she had her kids raised as Ohio State fans in Florida. Like, what? Like, let them cheer for a Florida university. There's plenty of schools in Florida. Why do you have to like have them stand out like that? It's kind of ridiculous. Like, he's never, like, those kids are never going to Ohio State. Like, why would you have them cheer for that school? I don't know. It's just weird. Okay. We've got Ohio State and Michigan, and it's in Ann Arbor. You know, Ohio State kind of ran roughshod over their schedule. They didn't really have a challenge all year. Last couple of weeks, they beat Penn State 38-14. They beat Purdue 34-10. They beat UCLA 48-10. And then they beat Rutgers 42-9. So they really kind of put it on autopilot. You know, Julian Sayin is like a Heisman like candidate, but he hasn't put up huge numbers because most of these games, they really haven't needed him to put up huge numbers. This game, I expect that to be different. I expect Michigan, who's coming in with, you know, a win against Maryland, 45-20, barely beating Northwestern 24-22, barely beating Purdue 21-16, and then beating Michigan State 31-20. They're actually, Michigan's best win this year was that Washington win where they won 24-7. Everywhere else, they've looked kind of average in these games. They lost to USC pretty badly, and they lost to Oklahoma 24-13. So I expect Michigan's defense to come to play, but I really expect Ohio State to really kind of ramp up their, like, you know, their output here. I feel like they've been kind of taking it easy most of this season. This is the game to really kind of, you know, put the screws to the other team. And I feel like they're going to score a lot of points. I feel like Ohio State's going to score at least 35 here. And I don't think Michigan's offense is good enough to score, you know, more than 24 on Ohio State's defense. Like I said, last couple of weeks, they've allowed 14, 10, 10, 9. So they're about similar pace to Texas Tech. They shut out Wisconsin. They beat Illinois pretty severely. They almost shut out Minnesota. They held Washington to 6 points. So they've, you know, they've done quite well all year. I feel like Ohio State is going to be able to keep Michigan's offense in check, which for the most part is just Underwood, you know, handing the ball off and occasionally throwing the ball to their star receiver. But outside of that, I've not been really impressed by Michigan's offense a ton. You know, there's one receiver on their team, Marsh, that I feel highly of. The rest of them are kind of whatever. You know, their run game is stout. They can run the ball exceptionally well. Kuzdal, and there's another guy too for Michigan that runs the ball really well. And I don't expect Michigan to put up a ton of points. Like I said, I'm going to say Ohio State wins 38-20. What do you got?
Obviously, this is one of the most historic rivalries in all of college football. But one thing to note, what's at stake here is obviously Michigan has gone a full academic scholarship tenure 4 years in a row beating Ohio State. The last time they won, and I'm going to put a technicality here, 5 wins in a row was in the 90s, 1988 to 1993. The only reason I put a caveat to that was because the 1992 contest ended in a tie. So if you want to go even further, the last time they won more than 4 games in a row in this series was in the 1920s. So it has been a while since Michigan. Now, don't get me wrong. In the 90s, late 80s, 90s, Michigan dominated this thing, and Ohio State would maybe get a win here or there. Now we're going to see if the script can flip, because obviously in the 2010s, it was all Buckeyes the whole way.
Yeah.
So now they're in Ann Arbor. Obviously, the pressure is on Ohio State when you really think about it. Yeah, they haven't really played anybody, and Michigan obviously would love nothing more than ruin their season and hop into that Big Ten championship over them. And this is what's at stake right now. It is very, very simple for Ohio State. And I cannot express it any easier than I can in this one, especially from last year. Play to your strengths. You have, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the country in Jeremiah Smith. Use him. You have in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in the country with Sayin. Use him. Yes, your running attack is good, but you are not going to out Michigan, which is what they tried to do last year and failed miserably at. Play to your strengths. Run to the outside, throw to the outside, make the cornerbacks and linebackers move, make Michigan's defense uncomfortable. Their offense is not good enough to keep up with you. The only way Ohio State loses is like they do what they did last year and beat themselves. If they score more than 20 points, I feel like that's enough for the Buckeyes. And I think they can get it done if they just stay out of their own way. But I think Ohio State gets the win here. I'm going to go with a 30-17 win for Ohio State.
Yeah, so updates on Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. It looks like both of them are able to practice before the game on Saturday, so that more than likely means they'll be able to get in there for Saturday. So, yes, I feel like that is going to be the key. Like you said, it's not going to be a run, whatever game. It's going to be throw the ball down the field, and I feel like it's Ohio State's advantage. You've got some of the best receivers. Jeremiah Smith is an NFL caliber receiver already, and I feel like they're just going to be able to throw the ball a ton on them, and that'll be the difference in this game. Okay, moving on to UCF BYU in Provo. Man, this game, it's funny because it's BYU needs this one to keep pace, needs to fulfill the scenarios there in the Big 12 conference championship game. I feel like BYU should be able to easily win this one. UCF is not a good team. They got smoked by Texas Tech 2 weeks ago. They barely beat a coachless Oklahoma State team. They did almost beat Houston, and they got smoked by Baylor 30-3. So, but I just feel like this BYU team is highly competent on all levels of football. And, they played well in that Cincinnati game, tough road game at the end. They smoked TCU, and they got beat by Texas Tech. They beat Iowa State, and they beat Utah. So I feel like BYU, this is all on the line for them. We talked about battered bull syndrome. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think last year they had some scenarios where they could have gotten into better positioning, but they just didn't do it. I think this game is for them for the taking. I like BYU a ton. I love Bear Bachmeier. I love Kingston and Roberts, Martin. Offensively, they put up a ton of points, and they can do things all phases of the game. Their special teams are solid. Their defense gets turnovers. I feel like this team is very unheralded, and for whatever reason, I think it's because they play later games, so people don't see them as much. But I like BYU here. It's an early game, so people will be able to actually watch this game. I'm saying BYU wins let's say 34 to 17. What do you got?
Yeah, and I feel like in this game, BYU is just going to play to their strength, and UCF isn't going to be able to catch up. UCF has the 79th ranked rushing defense, and that has been BYU's bread and butter, has been the run game. As good as Bachmeier can be at throwing the ball, they're just as good. That's their engine for the offense is running it. And I don't see the defense getting enough stops, and I don't see the offense being able to get more than 25 points on this BYU defense. So I think the Cougars will win this one. I'm going to go with a 31-14 win for BYU.
Okay. Next game we've got Oregon, Washington. What is this one? The Apple Cup?
No, Apple Cup is Washington State. Does this one have a rivalry name?
I don't know if it does, because the other one's the Civil War, right?
Yeah, Oregon and Oregon State Civil War, and Washington State is the Apple Cup.
I don't know what this one is. Maybe it's the
Northwest. Yeah, it doesn't have a name. It's Northwest rivalry, whatever you want.
But it has been a big rivalry, because even what was it a couple years ago when Michael Penix was there, and the Ducks were right on the verge of getting into the playoff, and then Washington beat them in the Pac-12 championship game. So this is a huge game, and Damon Williams is not a slouch. He's definitely a solid quarterback who puts up numbers. This Washington team is been kind of hit or miss, but they did beat Illinois. They lost to Wisconsin pretty badly. A couple of blowouts last couple weeks. I feel like because it's in Washington, it gives them a better shot. But this Oregon team is really, really good. Like Sadiq and Dante Moore. Dante is a stud. I've been following him since he was at UCLA. They performed very well against USC. They put up huge numbers, and the run game is pretty stout, and they have several guys. Winnington had a good game against USC, and they had another guy. What's his name? Davison. Yeah. So they have options with the run game that they can get going there. And besides Sadiq, there's other guys. Malik Benson, who's that transfer from Florida State, he's done quite well. He had that punt return for a touchdown. This team, Oregon, defensively, I think they've been better. Last week was a little bit of a struggle. USC is one of the better offenses in the country, so you're going to allow some points. But they did well against Minnesota defensively, did well against Iowa and Wisconsin, and Rutgers. So the last couple of weeks, outside of that USC game, the defense has come to play. I think that can be the same here. I think Oregon's defense can keep DeMond in check just enough for Oregon to win this one. I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say a 28-17 game, and maybe Oregon scores late to make it a 2-score game. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree. I think this one will be close, but Oregon, especially with them in a playoff spot and still with a chance of maybe leapfrogging into the Big Ten championship. Now, Washington has not been an easy place to win, clearly. With Ohio State, they did win, but obviously the history has not been great for other teams going in. I mean, ask Oregon themselves the last couple of years when they had to go into Seattle. But I feel like in this one, Dan Lanning just isn't going to make them lose their focus, and I think they'll get the job done. Even if it's close at halftime, I feel like Oregon's better prepared in this type of game. So I'm going to go with the Ducks winning. I'm going to go with a 30-21 win for Oregon.
Okay, moving on. I have a mistake I made on the rundown. I had it as Oklahoma at LSU, but it's actually LSU going to Norman. So I feel like with everything on the line here for Oklahoma, I feel like they win this game. this LSU team is reeling. You know, they did beat Arkansas and they beat Western Kentucky, but you know, they got smoked by Alabama, smoked by Texas A&M, the reason Brian Kelly got fired. I feel like Oklahoma should win this game easily. I feel like Oklahoma's defense comes to play. I feel like they can keep LSU to like 20 points or less. And if that's the case, all they need to score is like 23, 24. So I'm going to say like 28 to like 17 game. What do you got?
I mean, this is an offense that only put 13 up against Western Kentucky and then lost 20-9 against Bama, got obviously shut down against A&M, and now you are playing the best defense in the SEC with the best defensive mind, Brent Venable. I don't see LSU really getting on the board enough to really make it a threat. I think Oklahoma gets it done easily. I'm going to go with let's do a 31-10 win for the Sooners.
Yeah, someone called out. It's Venables. It's not Venables.
Venables? Sorry.
Yeah. It's all right. I just like saw him I'm sorry. We cover like 70 teams at least. So like I'm sorry if we have a mispronunciation, you jerks. Whatever. Call us out, whatever. We'll try to fix whatever we get on our mistakes. So okay, next one we've got is Vanderbilt, Tennessee. What is this rivalry? It's got to be like a
Tennessee something. I don't know the name of this one either.
Anyway, so, you know, I don't think I've ever seen Vanderbilt come into this game as the better team record-wise. I like in my like entire time watching SEC football, Vanderbilt has always been the worst team. So, actually, no, there were some years when James Franklin was there that they had some good years. So, and Tennessee was pretty bad for a while. So maybe that was like one of those years. But still, it's been a long time that Vanderbilt has always been the bad team in this rivalry. It's in Knoxville. Vanderbilt is coming off a beatdown of Kentucky. They had to go to overtime against Auburn. They came back a little to Texas, but still lost that one. They beat Missouri. Perbula got hurt. And then they beat LSU. So, I don't know. Like, this Tennessee team does not impress me a ton as far as, like, you know, they lost to Oklahoma. You know, they kind of were in a shootout with Kentucky. They got smoked by Alabama and needed a, you know, shootout with Arkansas, shootout with Mississippi State. You know, they were shootout with Georgia too. So I guess they've been able to hold their own. And Aguilar has put up numbers. They didn't do a ton last week because they were kind of like holding the dogs at bay because they could have put up a huge number against Florida. And I think they didn't because Florida does not have a coach. I think that's why Heupel kind of stood off from doing that, which that is respectful. I appreciate that. But they're not going to call off the dogs here. Like if they score, they're going to be scoring a ton. But I like this Vanderbilt team a ton. I think Pavia brings a moxie that Vanderbilt has not had like ever. And, you know, he's able to put the team on his back and score some points. I think Vanderbilt, I think it's going to be a close one, like a 34-30 game. And it's basically a coin flip at this point, I think. And I think because Vanderbilt needs this to have any shot at the playoff, which I don't think they're going to. But it'll be, who knows? Maybe chaos reigns in front of them and they get in. I'm going to say because it's in Knoxville, I'm going to favor Tennessee. So I'm going to say 34-30 Tennessee. What do you got?
Yeah, and with this one, this is kind of like the forgotten rivalry in the SEC. Obviously, both Tennessee schools. And Tennessee has normally dominated it. But Vandy, you know, their last win in Knoxville wasn't that long ago. It was in 2000. Well, I say that relatively speaking. It was in 2017. And that one, they blew them out in Rocky Top. But then again, those are years where Tennessee was down. And I was trying to find doing the homework on this game. The last time Vandy was in a game where they were ranked as, them and Tennessee were ranked was in the 1950s. It's been a long time. And I think this is the first time since the 1940s that Vanderbilt was the higher ranked team. So obviously it's complete role reversal here. But in this game, I feel like it's in Rocky Top, and Vanderbilt, as good as their defense is, I feel like the offense with Tennessee is going to be able to spread the linebackers out and kind of, especially with the rushing attack with Bishop, I feel like that's going to be pretty effective. And I think it'll be a close one, and obviously we could see, Vanderbilt can gut a win out. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think Tennessee survives the scare. I'm going to go with Vols winning let's do a 38-34 win.
Okay. I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Oh, thank God it's almost over. Okay. Florida State, Florida. I did say this, though. I don't know if I said it last week. I'm not saying it saves the season, but it would make me feel a little bit better is if, obviously, the only thing stopping Florida State from having another losing season, which will be, their fourth in 6 years and the third under Mike Norvell, the only thing stopping that from happening and going to another bowl game is a game in the Swamp against the Gators. Now, they obviously had their last win when they went undefeated, but I mean, it's insane. I almost want to make a post. I put it on my Twitter. It would be like another old person just being like, back in my day, Florida and Florida State were both ranked in the top 10 and it had national championship implications. Okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed. It's been a minute since, both of these teams really where it mattered where both of these teams were highly ranked. And obviously this is as down years get, especially for Florida. Like I said, this is our generation's version of the 1979 season. I mean, Florida State finds ways to lose, and Florida is just bad right now. They only have Jaden Baugh is really the only player to note. So it's really a matter of a very movable object facing a very stoppable force. Because, they lost to NC State. I mean, they beat Vaught Tech, and then they blew out Wake. Florida's lost 4 in a row. But they've, then they play tough against Georgia, and that is way tougher than any team Florida State's played since Alabama and Ole Miss. But then they get pants against Tennessee. I don't know. I feel like Florida State would be more motivated. I mean, not to say Florida isn't, because obviously with these two, they hate each other. I said that too with my wife. She said, with both of these teams losing, are they not going to fight each other? I'm like, no, they're still going to fight. You're going to, regardless of the record, they could be 0-11 and there will be a pregame fight with these two. It's just it is the natural law. So that'll be something to look forward to. It's like hockey with these two.
Yeah.
But I feel like for Florida State, they'll be more motivated. They have to, especially for Norvell. I get he got the vote of confidence, which ask any fired coach this year how well that has worked. Yeah. You got the vote of confidence that he's coming back, but you cannot, man, you've got to win this game, because not only would you lose to a god-awful Florida team and that was the other thing too. I did look this up. Norvell would be the first coach in Florida State history to lose to Florida under 2 different interim head coaches. No joke, because 2021 it was an interim coach, and if he loses this one, it would be the same thing, and it would cost them a bowl game. So you can't do that. That can't happen. So I think Florida State, as much as I hate it and I hate them, they got more they got more on the line than Florida. So I think the Seminoles win it. It'll be ugly. Let's go with a 22-17 win, a really ugly score for the Seminoles, and they'll go to the Gasparilla Bowl or something.
Yeah, and they might play USF. I think Castellanos, last week had 2 interceptions. If he's throwing up picks, Florida's in this game. And I know that's a very easy take to have, turnovers. But it is a huge part of how teams play. And Florida actually this year has done better at like forcing turnovers. So, and that kept them in some games because of those turnovers. So I'm going to say if they can get Castellanos to throw at least 2 picks, they can be in this game to the very end. I think Jaden Baugh probably has a good game because, this Florida State defense is not very good. And, I don't know. I guess the only result that really kind of mystifies me this whole, like looking at Florida State's schedule, is that Wake Forest result, which I'm like, how did they blow them out when Wake Forest only has like 3 losses and they beat SMU? And like, what? It like makes no sense out of this whole thing from this whole year. But I don't know. I can't pick Florida State, but it just seems likely that they're going to win this one just because, Florida, the defense has kind of packed it in last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Packed it in against Kentucky. They played better against Ole Miss, and they were in it till the very end. And then they packed it in against Tennessee. Like, that was, like, right away. It was, like I said in the show, it was 21-0 until Florida got their very first down. So, like, if that's the same case here, Florida could pack it in very early. I don't know. Maybe it's a rivalry game. These guys get up for it. It seems like it's a sellout again, so the crowd is going to be there. I think people want to see a win against Florida State. I think last week they were disappointed with the Tennessee result, but I think it could lend itself to that. But I guess I'm trending more towards Florida State at this point. I don't want to pick them. I just feel like this team is kind of just, you got all those injuries on offense for Florida. You've got, defense is just kind of given up. And I hate that because the defense was so good, like the first, 2/3 of the year. And then they just kind of, I don't know, they lost their motivation. But I'll say FSU wins. Hurts my soul, but FSU wins probably 24-20, and maybe Florida has the ball last, and DJ throws a pick, and they lose it. Okay, last couple of games here. We still have 4 or 5 to go, so it's going to be a bit here, but let's get through them real quick. Okay, Virginia Tech. Virginia is a way better team. Virginia Tech coming off that loss to Miami, lost to FSU, lost to Louisville. They fired their coach. They did beat Cal, lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to Wake Forest. They did beat NC State, but, like I said, they fired their coach. Don't have a ton to play for here. The game is in Blacksburg. No, sorry, I missed this one up too. It's in Charlottesville. So Virginia Tech, I don't think it's going to be up to snuff here. I think Virginia with Chandler Morris is going to score a ton of points. I think their offense has really kind of rounded themselves out since he came back 2 weeks ago against Duke, and they looked really good. They kind of dominated that game. He's got to limit the mistakes, though. Morris had 2 interceptions there. I feel like they can. I'm going to say Virginia wins 38-20. What do you got?
You want to talk about lopsided histories since the turn of the millennium? This rivalry, Virginia's won 2 games against Va Tech in this series. And the last time was in 2019, which was in Charlottesville. Yeah. I feel like in this one, kind of similarly, Va Tech is reeling. And what I said about Florida State against Florida, even more so, because Virginia needs to just remove any doubt, get the win, beat up your rival, and you're in the ACC championship. They have more to lose than this one. Obviously, Virginia Tech would love to ruin that, but I feel like Virginia is going to stay focused. They're at home. They should be able to handle the job. I'm going to take Cavs winning this one. I'll go with a 38-17 win.
Okay, next game we've got USF Rice. It all depends because, like we said, the reports came out today that Alex Golish has allegedly taken the Arkansas job. It was from one guy that's like a Arkansas-specific account. and another one I didn't see where that guy's account was from. So as of right now, it seems like he has taken the job. I have not seen otherwise. I'm going to see real quick if I can get on Twitter, see if anything is popping up. Yeah, no national media has put out there that he's gone. So I feel like it's kind of whatever at this point. They have to focus on winning this game because they still have an outside shot of getting into the AAC, the American. What is it like? I think if they win, if USF wins and Navy loses and North Texas loses, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, and East Carolina has to lose to Florida Atlantic.
Wait, you sure that East Carolina has to win too?
That's what I saw. That's why. But then again, I mean, it's when USF, it's a lot tougher when it's with teams with like less than a 1% chance.
Yeah,
a lot of moving parts.
Right, I know there was like a lot of moving parts, but it's crazy. So either way, in this game, they got to win this game. You know, they get to 9 wins, which would be a huge step in the right direction for the program. I feel like, you know, if Byram plays up to his standard, which he's done all year, you know, he's on the verge of doing 3,000 yards passing and 1,000 yards rushing, which would be huge because only like, I don't know, I think it's like 10 quarterbacks have done that the last 20 years or something like that. And so, you know, there's a huge push for him to do this. You know, I feel like the defense is kind of playing really well last couple games. You know, they kind of took it to UAB last week, and then but they did have that bad performance against Navy. So hopefully they got that out of their system and they can get this game. And you know, this Rice team is not very good. You know, they got smoked by North Texas. They did beat UAB. They lost to Memphis. They beat UConn, who's like a 9-win team, so that's a good win. They got smoked by UTSA. They lost to FAU. So this Rice team is not very good. So USF should win this game by 20, 30 points. I'm going to say USF wins like 48 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, and it's all about staying focused, regardless of what's going on. Similar to how they played against Rice last year, just don't lay down and die. Just don't care. Like, that's all I want, because that's all it takes. South Florida is clearly the better team in this game, so they just have to show up and prove it. If Byron Brown, you know, there's rumors of whether he's going to sit out or play, but if he does play, he should go off against this Rice defense, and the defense for USF should be able to handle Rice, because against the kind of like upper echelon of AAC teams Rice has played, like they've played Memphis, they played North Texas, and those teams, they played UTSA. They've been blown out and handled without a problem. So I don't think USF should have a problem in this one. And I'm going to go with the 45-17 win for USF.
Okay. Next game we have is the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. A lot on the line for Alabama here. Auburn just playing for, you know, the rights to say they have a win over the rival. Alabama, if they win, like we said, they get into the SEC championship game, and at that point, likely secure a berth in the playoff. If they lose this game, they're more than likely got nothing. So this is a winner-take-all game, and so, you know, this is a huge game for Alabama. You know, it's in the Plains in Auburn. I feel like Auburn firing their coach, DJ Durkin, the interim. They got the win last week against Mercer. Played well against Vanderbilt in overtime, lost to Kentucky. I feel like this Auburn team is wounded, and this Alabama team, yes, they're coming off a loss to Oklahoma, but I feel like this Alabama team is right there where they want to be. I feel like Ty Simpson is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best. I feel like he's performed well all year. I think the run game has gotten better for Alabama over the year. Jam Miller is a stud running back. I feel like Daniel Hill has also done well for them too. And you got Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, just two stud receivers. This Alabama team defensively has done well. They've kept a lot of these games close, even in the ones that they've lost. So I don't expect a ton of points from Auburn. I expect Alabama to score at least like 27 to maybe 30 points. And I'm going to say like Auburn scores around like maybe 20. So I'm going to say a 30 to 20 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and what's interesting to note there's been a lot of talk that Bama has been nervous going into this game, and rightfully so, because they have not won a game in Auburn by double digits or by 2 possessions since 2015. And obviously their last loss to Auburn was in Auburn. So it's not the easiest place to win at for Bama, because even with the wins, they don't come easy. So in this game, I feel like, though, Alabama, again, it's all about maintaining focus, because they are the one team that can really control their destiny. All they have to do, again, win, you're in, no problems whatsoever. But if they lose, that opens up a whole hornet's nest to teams jumping, like Georgia, Ole Miss, or even A&M jumping ahead of them. I feel like, though, Alabama, especially with Jam Miller and that rushing attack, is going to be able to find a way to get enough positive plays, just play an Alabama-type offense that Auburn can't keep up. And I feel like Bama will get the win here. I do say it will be more by 2 possessions, but I think it'll be close going into halftime. And I think the defense gets enough stops. Much as we've seen, the offense maybe turn around since the Kentucky loss and Hugh Freeze's firing, I don't see Alabama's defense giving up more than 23 points, which I think would be like the threshold to win it. So I think Bama's going to win. I'll go with the 31-20 win for the Tide.
Just a note on USF, Rob Higgins, the athletic CEO for USF, said that Golish has been presented with outside opportunities that he's been transparent about with us. We are respectful and supportive of Coach and his family in the decision-making process. And so basically they're aware of the opportunities. So nothing has been signed, whatever. So I'm sure USF has an opportunity to counter to as well. So we'll see. That's what I feel like that's what that means. If he's putting out a statement like that, he is feeling like he's not gone yet. So I don't feel like he has signed the contract. But this is as of 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see as the day goes, and maybe different by tonight. So we'll see. Okay, moving on to last couple of games here. Finishes off really quickly. USC UCLA. Oh man, the Freeway Bowl. And I want to go to this game because I haven't been to this rivalry yet since I've been here, which is kind of a shame that I've done that. But a lot of times it falls on the rivalry game with FSU, and I really want to see that game. So it's tough for me because it's like I want to see both. And, if I'm at a tailgate, maybe I can watch it. But I don't know. I'd rather – I don't know. The FSU-Florida rivalry means something to me, and I like being able to watch that game if at home or wherever. Or I went to the game 2 years ago. So, I've gone to more of those games, and they just mean more to me. And I do want to, because we represent and, cover USC and UCLA, it's just hard. I have to make my choices, and I feel like my choice right now is with with watching the Florida State game. And I'm sorry, and I hate that, but it's just the reality. So let's get into it. So UCLA coming off of bad losses to Washington, 48-14, bad loss to Ohio State, 48-10, bad loss to Indiana, 56-6, and a closer game, 28-21 to Nebraska, where they had their backup in. Rayola was hurt. So I don't know. I don't expect UCLA to put up a ton of fight. I feel like USC is going to be able to score at least 35 plus in this, and I don't think UCLA is going to stop them defensively. USC's defense has struggled to really kind of keep some of these teams in check. The better teams like Notre Dame scored 34, Oregon scored 42, but UCLA is not on that level. Nico is more than likely going to play in this game, so I feel like UCLA can score like around 20 points. I'm going to say USC wins 38-20. What do you got?
Yeah, and as much as a great rivalry this is and how motivated they'll be, USC just flat out has the better team right now. And I get they took a really, disheartening loss to Oregon. So there is hope for UCLA that this is a bit of a hangover game from that, because obviously they needed to win that game for any chance to stay alive in the playoff race or even go to the Big Ten championship. But it's clearly not going to happen now. It's in the Coliseum, and I feel like, I just trust USC's offense more than UCLA's right now. And UCLA, as good as it's been to see where they were legitimately looking down the barrel of 0-12 to get those wins, I don't see them getting the win here. I'm going to take the Trojans winning. I'll go with 34-20.
Okay. All right. Next game we have, last two. SMU Cal. Now, this is a huge game. SMU has to win this game. They're going on the road to Berkeley. This Cal team is not a slouch. They've had some decent wins. They beat Louisville. They lost to Stanford last week. They lost to Virginia. They lost to Vatech. They beat North Carolina. I don't know. I feel like SMU with Jennings, they can score enough points. Their offense is very good, but their defense, I'm totally enamored with. But this Cal team with their quarterback, Jaron Q Saga Volante, I'm just gonna say JKS. JKS, just easier. I just can't say it. I've tried. JKS is a very good quarterback, puts up numbers. I feel like SMU, though, can do what they need to win this game. They got lucky last week as Miller Moss was out, and so they kind of smoked Louisville because of that. They beat Miami a couple weeks ago. They smoked BC. They lost to Wake Forest. They beat Clemson. So this SMU team is right there. Like they have the 3 losses, but only the 1 in conference play. So if they win, they get in. I think SMU has a ton to play for. I think they win it. They were in the conference championship last year, and they got into the playoffs. I feel like they have to win the championship to get in, because I don't think a 4-loss team gets in the playoff. But I like SMU here. I think SMU wins. I'm going to say like a 28-20 game. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, the hope for Cal in this one is that with both of the defenses, they're kind of in the middle of the pack in the ACC defensively, ranking-wise, in terms of yardage and points per game. The hope is that they can maybe even it out, make it a bit of a shootout. But even then, in that instance, SMU has the better offense, and they're more prepared. So even in Cal's best-case scenario, SMU's built for it. So I feel like SMU is just going to play their game, and Cal's, just not ready for it. So I'll go Mustangs winning. I'll go with a let's do 31-14.
Okay, last game. Last game of the regular season. Wow, we've come to the end of the regular season. It's such a long time here. So let's do it. Notre Dame, Stanford. Notre Dame has to win this game to get into the playoff. They will not get in with 3 losses. They're barely on the edge of the playoff mix as is. So they need this win, and they probably need some style points. They smoked Syracuse last week. They beat a very good Pittsburgh team the week before. They got lucky because Horvath wasn't in for Navy, so they smoked Navy 49-10. It kind of didn't look good against Boston College, but they did beat a good USC team. So this Notre Dame team needs this win. It's a late-night game. It's a 7:30 kick here Pacific, so it's like a 10:30 Eastern. So not many people are going to watch this game. I may stay up to watch it, but I have a ton of homework to do, obviously. So I'm going to watch all these games, their recaps, on Sunday morning. So I don't know if I'm going to stay up for this game. But I feel like with TJ Carr, with Jeremiah Love, with Price, with what they've done on offense, with clearly what they've done on defense, because the last 4 weeks they've allowed 7 points, 15 points, 10 points, 10 points. So they've averaged roughly around 11 points allowed the last 4 weeks. I feel like Notre Dame's going to do the same against Stanford's defense. Stanford, a team that is coming off of, a win against Florida State, a loss against North Carolina, a loss against Pitt, a win against Cal. And I feel like Notre Dame should be able to hold them to like 10 points or less. I'm going to say Notre Dame scores around 34. So I'm going to say 34-10 Notre Dame. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree, especially with, the rushing attack they have with Love and that whole dynamic. I don't feel like Stanford's going to be able to stop or limit Notre Dame. If they make it like second and manageable, third and manageable, Notre Dame's going to convert on those. And if they need to pass, Carr is very capable. Stanford would need a lot to go right. They would need Notre Dame to beat themselves for them to stay in this, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Irish, again, with all the other teams, even though they don't have, a conference championship to worry about, they still have, to make sure they look good for any chance of staying in the playoff. So I think they'll get the job done and they'll win running away with it. I'll go with the 40-10 win for the Irish.
That is it. That is officially our last prediction for the regular season. So enjoy these games. Rivalry week is such a great week. It's our favorite week here at Hater Radio. Like the slogan says, embrace the rivalry, and what we try to do. And this show is about nearly 2 hours. This is the longest show I think nearly we've ever done, close to it. It's a ton of games. I love that the expansion of the playoff has made all these games relevant and made it so much more enjoyable to be a fan of college football and be like, whoa, look at all these games that are important. Every one of these games matter to the conference, to the playoff, to everything. So there's a lot going on this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Ian. I'm thankful for you as a co-host coming on every week, every show. We put a lot of effort into these shows, and we watch all these games, and we love this sport, and we're thankful for all of you. We hit 4,000 subscribers just the other day, I think Monday. So, we're moving along. We are extremely grateful for all you fans, for everything that you guys have been supportive, all the my mutual follows on Twitter, X, all you guys and gals. I'm extremely grateful for you guys liking, reposting, everything. We appreciate your support. This brand only grows because of you guys being fans of college football as well and being supportive of this brand. So, Ian, you got any shout outs for Thanksgiving?
Clearly, I'm obviously thankful for you, man, obviously, for letting me do this for so long. And, I know my wife is thankful because there's somebody I can talk to college football about that isn't her.
Same.
Yeah, because I will tell. She asked, she was watching one of our reels and she goes, "What's G5?" I went, "Oh, that's Group of 5." And she's like, "What's that?" And I went, "I'm so glad you asked." And oh boy.
It literally is the same with my wife.
Right now.
It's the same with my wife. She's like, she always just says, whenever I'm talking, it's just football, football, football is football, football, football. And so like none of it makes any sense to her. And she just smiles and nods.
Yeah. Yeah, so but I'm obviously thankful for the show, thankful for everybody who won. It is insane to see how this has grown. And again, I just love talking about the sport. It is one of my favorite sports, and I obviously love this weekend. Obviously, with the amount of history, rivalries, all that stuff. I say college football, bar none, out of all the sports in North America, have the best rivalries. So the whole weekend dedicated to that is amazing. Obviously, thankful for my family, my wife, for letting me do this, for letting me talk my head off and all that. I am grateful for it all.
Yeah, I'm thankful for my wife, my family, my pooch here, Maximus. I love this guy, and thankful for all of you guys. Thankful for you, Ian, like I said, and thankful for that we get to watch these games. Yeah, there you go. Pooch is on parade. Max is like passed out. He's wagging his tail a little bit. But again, thank you all. Enjoy these games. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you guys on Sunday for the last regular season show. It's going to be a super maximum show. It's going to be a lot. So it's going to be probably as long as this one. But thank you again, y'all. And we'll talk to you guys on Sunday.